Thank you, contest master, excuse me. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, good evening. Now, fellow Toastmasters and guests, I want you to come with me. We're going to go to Sundance, Utah, and climb over a couple snowbanks. And we're going to go to one of my favorite cabins in the world. Now, get out your tape measures and your rulers, because we're going to see how big this thing is. So we're going to check the height. The height is 33 feet high. The width, 22 feet. And the length of this cabin is 54 feet. Now in total, the square footage of this cabin is 1,800 square feet. Now the reason I bothered to tell you the exact dimensions of this cabin is because each of those square feet was built by William F. Edwards' hands. Something interesting about William F. Edwards is that in 1929, when he met and married his sweetheart, Catherine Eyring, they merged their bank accounts, like most people do when they get married, and the balance was only $75.37. You might ask, well, what's going to happen with this guy? He only has 75 bucks. That's not that much. Well, maybe with inflation. With inflation, honestly, it couldn't even fund half of the reception for that marriage. Now, we're going to find out that William F. Edwards has a pretty amazing life. You see, he went to Columbia and NYU, but it wasn't all fun and games. During these years of school, while he was early in his marriage, his wife you could often find her bartering with some of the local farmers of the town, trying to get week-old fruit that was mildly rotted. You'd see her at night, cutting out little potholes in these fruits so that they could eat just the parts that weren't rotted. She would go and bargain for old rice and potatoes. It was tough times. But a couple years after he graduated, he went to Wall Street, and he found a job at a little place called Goldman Sachs. Now, he worked there for 20 years. And it was after 20 years that he picked up the phone one day and answered to Ernest L. Wilkinson, who was the president of then University Brigham Young, which has about 30,000 students that enroll each year. He took a position there as vice president of the university and dean of the business school. And in that capacity, he had the opportunity to mentor thousands of business students at BYU. He did it because he loved it. He only made about 1/8 of the money he did when he worked for Goldman Sachs, but he said yes to Ernest L. Wilkinson because he knew the importance of mentoring these young professionals. He later got a call from some leaders of the LDS Church, and he was called to become the first financial secretary, where he managed, to give you a perspective, the general fund now has $45 billion that he managed for the LDS Church. It was all because they knew that he was competent. Now, I'm telling you some of his professional achievements, but he would be the first one to tell you that his greatest achievements were in the home. He had 6 beautiful and motivated children. He had 22 grandchildren and 61 great-grandchildren, of which I'm one. Now, his story tells us a message that a lot of us don't start off on the best of feet. A lot of us have to scrap our way to get where we want to be eventually. Now I'll answer the question that was asked me earlier today about my car. What car am I driving, right? Well, some of you saw it in the parking lot. It's actually a 95 Subaru. It's that blue thing that's a station wagon out there. And it's a 4-cylinder. I'll tell you that because I was talking about cylinders earlier. Now, the car's kind of interesting. McKenna can tell you a little bit about it, because she and I have the best time, because we walked to the car, and on the passenger side door, you can pull that handle as much as you want, but that door is not going to open from the outside. So as romantic as I can be, I run around the car, and I have to get inside and lean over and pull that little latch and kick it open for McKenna. Otherwise, there's no way she's getting in. So that's one of the interesting things. The other interesting thing is I was driving on MLK, just a couple months ago, and my car broke down. And so you guys know the guys you honk at during traffic hour that are trying to push cars away with the hazards? That was me. That was me a couple months ago. I put a new alternator in, and the mechanic can also attest that it sounds like this. Ah! Really loud. So I'm driving, and everybody always looks at me, and I just feel so embarrassed. But I'll tell you something about that car. That car took me from Wenatchee, Washington to Baltimore, Maryland, a distance, do you know? 3,000 miles to dental school. Now that car is beat up. It looks pretty bad. But the truth is, it got me to where I wanted to be, at dental school, my dream dental school in Baltimore, Maryland. And so it's like many of us, we don't have to come from the most lavish background to achieve our wildest dreams. It's really within each of us that has that potential to achieve what we need to. And many of you have read the theme of the day. It's written down each time by our agenda. And it says that potential growth is infinite. Realized growth is dependent. Some of you have asked, what is it dependent on? It's dependent on what we do, what actions we put into play. And that will determine the progress that we make in life. You see, each of us has demands placed on us from all different directions. And it is based on us and what voices we listen to that determine what happens. Now, an interesting idea is comparing this to a war. You see, we war with worthless wants. And these worthless wants often are the things that waste our time. And it's when we're able to conceptualize the things that are important to us that we're able to win the wreaths of life's greatest rewards. Now, I'll read you a couplet from the eulogy of William F. Edwards. It reads, "So what we have to do is reach higher and spend some more time in action before we retire. Spend our afternoons working to perspire, even though at times we quake because we're tired." Now, fellow Toastmasters, this poem embodies William F. Edwards' life, and it is the anthem to which a successful life can be led, even if it starts with a meager $75.37. Contest Master.